Today we are going to learn to play the Caro-Kann like Magnus Carlsen, the GOAT himself. This white knight on g1 will just get trapped in under 13 moves. Let me show how. So we play the standard moves which have been discussed in the previous variation. And all the pieces are developed and the black pieces castle. Now the white pieces play knight to s4 targeting our bishop, and we play bishop to e4 placing the bishop in the center and trying to make them take the bishop. And if they take the bishop, we recapture with the pawn, limiting the mobility of the knight. Now they play c3 seeing that this pawn is hanging, but they forget about their knight, and we can play g4 trapping the knight and winning it in under 13 moves. So let's dive into the next variation. Now we will be looking at the exact variation that Magnus Carlsen used to draw with very strong grandmaster Spiller. So in this variation, e4, c6, d4 and d5 are played like the standard Caro-Kann. Now the white pieces play knight to c3, aiming to recapture the pawn if recaptured with the knight, so that they can put a knight in the center. Now we play takes and they take with the knight. Now we play knight to f6 aiming to trade this powerful knight, and they take our knight and we recapture with the e pawn. And they play bishop to d3 aiming the bishop at the long diagonal and making it hyperactive. So we play bishop to d6 doing the same and making our bishop very active. They play c3 supporting the center. Now we play castles so that we can get our king to safety. They play queen to c2 aiming a battery at our king. So we play rook to e8 check, getting a tempo first. Now they play knight to e2 and we play s6, successfully stopping this threat of recapturing the pawn. And they castle, and this is the variation that you all need to know about. Now we will go towards the Magnus Carlsen game. Now we are going to look at a game where Magnus Carlsen played as black and managed to draw against Spiller, who is our grandmaster. So e4, c6, d4, d5 was played, entering the standard Caro-Kann. Now Spiller played knight to d2, wanting to recapture the pawn if taken with the knight, and Magnus took the pawn. Spiller recaptured with the knight, and Magnus Carlsen played knight f6, entering the Tatakawa variation and trying to trade at knight. And the knight was traded. Spiller played c3, supporting the center. Now Magnus Carlsen played bishop to d6, aiming his bishop at the long diagonal and making it more active. And Spiller played bishop to d3, doing the same thing as Magnus did. Now Magnus castled. Spiller played queen to c2, aiming at the weak pawn on h2, h7. Now Magnus played a check. Spiller blocked the check with the bishop. Now Magnus played s6, safely putting the pawn away so that it cannot be recaptured with the bishop. Now Spiller played knight to e2, developing the knight. Magnus played knight to a6, trying to bring the knight back and to the center. Now Spiller castled, and Magnus played knight to c7, continuing with his plan. Spiller played c4, trying to gain more of the center and insert his dominance. Now Magnus played bishop to g4, trying to trade the knight. Now Spiller pushed the pawn and trying to make Magnus take the knight. Magnus took the knight. It was recaptured by using the bishop because Spiller wanted to place the bishop over here in the diagonal and play d5. Now Magnus developed the knight. Spiller bring the rook in the center. Magnus played queen to c7, developing the queen. Spiller played bishop to g4, trying to trade the bishop for this knight because this knight is very annoying and is in the center. And Magnus just played his rook in the semi-open file. Now Spiller did the same and brought his other rook to the e file. Now Magnus wanted to trade the bishops because he is an endgame god and wanted to go into an endgame. So the bishop was taken and Magnus recaptured with the knight because he wanted to trade the rooks and insert the pressure in the open file. And that was what happened in the game, and the players agreed to a draw after playing some moves after that. So